Morning, everybody. Welcome to the White Orchid session. This is a Southern Oolong Tea. During this set of three, we've covered one Southern Wulong Tea, which was a Tieguanyin or Iron Goddess varietal. That was the very first one, Iron Goddess Roasted. And then last week, we moved from Southern Fujian to Northern Fujian and did Mountain Orchid. And then this week, we're back down in Southern Fujian. So by the end of this session, we'll have more information on Southern Fujian teas. We'll have more information about teas in Fujian Province in general. So before we actually start marching, let's talk about what this week has looked like. So at the beginning of the week, I had the tea master and I had all sorts of frustrations because we had a shipment hung up in customs. And actually it was US customs. Usually when we have shipments hung up, well, not usually, sometimes it's US and sometimes it's Chinese customs, although less often Chinese customs. And this one was particularly difficult because the rules continue to change. And as they change, we get affected. I have more forms to fill out, more things to answer, more numbers to put in places. But I dutifully did all of that. And the stuff still was held up. The end of this dark story was yesterday, all the tea showed up. And in fact, we had two shipments come in this week, which was really great. One which didn't go through the pain and aggravation of being held up in customs, and one which did. We're in the final taxiing portion of the Wulong journey. Oh, wait a minute, of the cliff tea journey right now. So we've got samples in shop. And so we're starting that process of looking at the samples. And Tea Master and I are moving expeditiously with this because we'd like to get that shipment started as soon as possible. So hopefully within about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we'll get those teas in, and then essentially will be finished for this season. So we're really looking forward to that. We're making progress on all of these things, and that's the main stuff that or that's the very most important thing that happened this week. All right, so let's start on White Orchid, and let's think about what's different between a Northern Fujian and a Southern Fujian tea, Wulong tea. First off, the process itself is much more complex in Northern Fujian, and it takes a full 3 to 4 months to actually finish the process. Lots of that time is devoted to roasting, and roasting is a very important component in the final flavor profile. For the Southern Fujian, all of their teas are processed within about 36 to 48 hours. And then they rest for about 30 days before they go to market. So there's a major difference that way. There's also a stylistic difference. Do you notice in looking at the little baggie of White Orchid today that the leaves are in a round shape versus the Mountain Orchid, which was in a striped shape? Same was true of the Iron Goddess Roasted. Has this been the way it's always been in terms of the shapes of the teas? And the answer is no. It's stylistic, and over time it tends to change. So some things fall out of style, some things come back into vogue. So the striped shape has always been in style in Northern Fujian. the rounded shape, let's go back a little bit. So let's go back to the year 1846. A gentleman surnamed Wulong, whose family for generations had been doing tea, opened a shop called the Meiji Tea Shop. And their whole family's gestalt was, let's do things right. Let's do things the traditional way. That's what they meant by right. And so one of the things that they introduced into tradition, at least they get credit for introducing into tradition, perhaps somebody else did it and they just saw it and then copied it, was they put the tea after it was rolled, and then they put it in a cloth sack, tied the cloth around a metal or a bamboo stick, and then slowly rotated it tighter and tighter and tighter. This is how they get the rolled up shape. So in 1846, this shop that this guy founded, the Meiji shop, started exporting this tea around Southeast Asia. So there's been a history of this varietal of tea. And when I say varietal, I should say Southern Fujian oolongs, which includes what we're going to cover today, White Orchid, and includes the Iron Goddess Light. All right, I'm sorry, the Teguani, that's what I should say, which is a broader classification than Iron Goddess Light. Yes.
Please say again, what shape were you calling the northern leaves?
Striped, or in strips.
Strips.
Yeah, you see both terms, STRIPE, and then you see the STRIPS. You see both terms in the literature, but what they mean is that rolled shape that is elongated versus the ball shape that you see in today's tea. So let's step back and do a little bit more history before you become absolutely thirsty. So what is this tea generally classified as? Well, obviously it's an oolong tea. And let's go back to our history for a minute. So Wulong Tea originated in Northern Fujian Province, and it originated sometime in the late 1500s, and then over time migrated to Southern Fujian. And you really weren't having significant production of Southern Fujian teas until the late 1600s, early 1700s. So that's a little bit of the history, time-wise. Now, this is in Fujian Province, which is in southern China. So let me get you situated again. So think of Canton Province. Fujian is immediately north. It's a little bit to the east on the ocean side. And if you think of Taiwan, you can, in some places in Fujian, look across the straits and see Taiwan. So in the northern part of Fujian, you can look across the straits and see Taiwan if you're on the ocean side of Fujian Province. So just like Yunnan, remember, in Yunnan, we have something called Dianhong, right? D-I-A-N, and then H-O-N-G, which is Yunnan Black. And remember, we've talked about how this has migrated over to the US, and people have come to believe Yunnan Black refers to one tea. Well, what has happened in Fujian that has an analog? They have something called Min Cha, M-I-N-C-H-A. Min Cha. So if somebody says to you, Min Cha, what does that mean? It means it's from the Min area. And what is the Min area? And I'm talking about the M-I-N area, not the M-E-A-N area. The Min area is another name for Fujian Province. And so it's a greater name in the sense that when you say min cha, you're referring to all the different styles of tea done in Fujian Province. So what is it that's done in Fujian Province? Well, we see Wulong, a couple different styles, northern and southern. There's white tea. We know this. Fuding, Zhenghe, other Jinyang, other places in Fujian that are specific to white tea production. And you see green tea in the eastern part of Fujian. So you see all these different types of tea. And of course, one of you is going to remember very quickly, well, isn't Fujian also famous for red tea? And you would be right. It is famous for red tea, and we have several Fujian red teas. So they do a lot of different tea in Fujian Province. And why is this again? Because the climate and the terroir are perfect for the growth of various types of varietals. So unlike the north, so last week we were in the north, where you've got volcanic terroir, in the south you do not. And so therefore the flavor profile is obviously going to be different. And we'll talk about that today as we're doing White Orchid. So let's quickly review the processing steps of Southern Fujian. So you got to pick the tea. You always have to pick the tea. This is a spring pick. Spring pick, since it's Southern Fujian, tends to be a little bit later than some of the places more northern. So usually spring pick, you've started by middle to late March, and you're completed by middle April. So that's usually the range of spring pick. And after you pick, you got to wither. So withering is very important. You do two types of withering. And we talked about this at great length last week when we were talking about mountain orchid, because you have make the leaf, which means you're doing indoor withering. You also are doing outdoor withering. You do less indoor withering with Southern Fujian teas. Most of the withering is outdoors. So the main decision points, once you get past the withering stage, everybody fries, right? Because you got to denature the enzyme. You don't do that though until you bruise the leaves. So you bruise the leaves first, then you fry to stop the oxidation. Then you, while you're frying, do a preliminary shaping. It's nowhere near a final shaping. Then you wrap, as I said, in that cloth, and that does the final shaping into the ball, and then you bake. Now the baking is the other main thing that you're doing. So usually there's two types of baking in Southern Fujian teas. One is a shorter baking, and it's at about 200 degrees, maybe a little bit higher, 225, between 200 and 225. And then, and that's usually for 3 hours or so. And then if you want to increase the bakedness of the tea, you can do a secondary baking, and that usually is 3 to 6 hours at a higher temperature. Not much higher, so you're usually up there around 285, 275, 300. And you're always paying attention because this baking can get out of hand. So the Iron Goddess Roasted actually underwent 2 bakings, and that roasted quality of it occurred in a second baking that farmer normally doesn't do, but at our request went ahead and did. So you have choices as a farmer. You can make your tea light, which means only 1 baking. And when you make it light, usually the tea liquor will tend to be more green than yellow and tend to have a little bit more punch to it. If you bake it again, you tend to get a little bit, well, not a little bit, you get significantly darker tea liquor, although it's nowhere near as dark as the Northern Fujian heavy roasted teas. But you saw what the Iron Goddess roasted looked like. Now, what you're going to have today looks different than the Iron Goddess light and the Iron Goddess roasted. And it's not even Iron Goddess varietal. But why is it grouped with Iron Goddess? I know all of you are thinking about this. Didn't you say this is different than Iron Goddess? It is. It's what they call a small varietal. And there are about 4 of the small varietals where the farmers follow the same essential rules, but you get taste differences because they are different varietals. Yes?
When you said there's more punch to the flavor, what do you mean?
So the flavor tends to be sharper in your mouth. And what is going to be floral is more floral. What is going to be sweeter is, what is going to be sweet is sweeter. That's what I mean by more punch. You notice when we served the Iron Goddess roasted, what one word got me all excited when you described that? You said delicate. Yes, delicate, but none of you said punchy. You said mellow, smooth. You talked about underlying flavors, but there was nothing punchy about it. When we did the Iron Goddess Light, which some of you were on that session before, you talked about prominence of flavor. So that's what I mean by punchiness. So today's tea, I'm not going to give it away. We're going to go through it. And you already are indicating thirstiness. So it's time for the tea master to come over here and demonstrate how to brew White Orchid. And then after she demonstrates, she'll brew with you. And then we'll enter the quality arena and talk about all the differences between this and Iron Goddess Roasted. So it is my great pleasure to have the thirsty tea master come and brew.
Hi, good morning, everyone. 早上好. We do oolong, but I call not cliff tea or it's Southern Fujian. Okay, so everybody know I change my teapot. This is my teapot. So for me, I'm the summary for different the type of tea. This is for my green tea, black tea. Yeah. So I think if people come over here, so people see, oh, they use a teapot, right? Yeah, this for clay, called oolong. This is from this I made the oolong from Southern Fujian. It's the Wulong Tea. Okay, Sim you just help me.
Yeah. So to clarify, tea master uses different pots depending on the style of oolong tea. So for the lighter ones, she uses this pot. For the cliff teas, use this pot. And the reason being is that the teas tend to season and leave an impression on the pots, and that enhances the flavor long term. So that's why you want to use some consistency when you're making this type of tea. Remembering that oolongs love high heat. We're talking about 200-degree water here. You always heat the pot. You heat both the outside and the inside. And you also heat the receptacle, the receiving cup. You make sure that there's nothing that you don't want in the pot. So what would you not want in the pot? You wouldn't want old leaves. So you make sure that there are no old leaves. And Why was the tea master able to detect right away that there were old leaves in that pot? Look at the color of what came out. The color was yellow. So she knew, all right, what happened? There must be some old leaves in there. So that's why you always pay attention to all the details. All right, so she's again making sure that the pot has nothing at all that she doesn't want in there. Pouring it into the cup, that is the water, making sure that there are no soap stains or anything else undesirable on the cup. And now, ready to go as she inspects and double checks. All of these clay teapots have a built-in strainer to them. She's taking the White Orchid and putting it in the pot. It's pre-measured 6 grams. In these pots, it's 2 minutes for the first steep, 1 minute for the second, if it's a clay unglazed pot, Asian pot. If you're using a ceramic, it's 3 minutes for the first and 2 for the second. And remember, the unglazed pots from the Chinese perspective give the absolute best flavor. And that's what we've discovered as well. And for those of you who have the special Yixing pots, remember that in your case, you would use less grammage. So instead of 6 grams, you would use 5 grams. Tea master still heating the pot, making sure everything is just perfect for the brewing. And remember, why do you take this time? Oh, I'm sorry. She's not heating the pot. She put the water in there. My gosh, I lost track of what she was doing. All right, and I put 2 minutes on. I should have had that 2 minutes ready right away. You won't make that mistake. You'll have the 2 minutes already up there right away. All right, so we went through the processing, and one of the things that's really, really important for these oolongs is when they're making them in the field, the farmer always tells you, don't drink these on an empty stomach, particularly the ones that have just come out of the oven. Now, they actually drink to make sure that it's tasting what they want it to taste like before it goes to market. But again, they rest these for 30 days. I've had these things right out of the oven as well, but they're always cautious because some of these can make you a little nauseous if you have an empty stomach. Even when they're on the market, they can make you a little nauseous if you have an empty stomach. This is not all people, but some people, because of the interaction with polyphenols in your digestive system, sometimes can have this as an issue. Not only with the light oolongs, but also with the green teas, you can have this as an issue. How about the northern heavy roast oolongs? Would this ever be an issue? And the answer is almost never, because the chemical constituents are a little bit different. They actually are usually thought of as helpful for digestion, usually don't have that type of reaction. Nonetheless, you should always have a little something in your stomach before you go and start drinking a lot of tea. Okay, 2 minutes is finished. You notice the tea master isn't in a blind hurry. She's careful, paying attention to details, not trying to create a lot of bubbles, pouring on the side there. All right. So what is it we have to remember right away? 200-degree water. That means you can't just take a big old sip. if you take a large sip, your tongue will be very unhappy with you. Now, how are we going to first think about this? Remembering that we did 200-degree water, we're going to look at these leaves carefully from a distance, and we're going to smell from a 200-degree distance. In other words, don't put your nose in there, otherwise your nasal passage will have an argument with you. Okay, so why do we do this? Aroma and taste are combined. They give you this initial smell gives you some sense of where this tea might go. Look at this beautiful color. So I ask you this, take your notes out from the first week. Is this the color that the Iron Goddess roasted was? And the answer is no. The Iron Goddess roasted was a different color. And we'll talk about what that difference suggests. In the meantime, let's enter the quality arena, my favorite spot to go. So what do I mean by quality arena? We're going to take a 200-degree sip. We're going to roll it around our tongue, and we're going to try and ascertain the following things. Number one, where is the dryness occur in the tongue? How deep is that dryness? Number two, what sort of aftertaste? Do you have a cooling aftertaste? Is it a little thin? Is it a little viscous? What are you experiencing with the aftertaste? Number three, what about energetics? For those of you who are on for the first time, remembering that energetics in some ways is subjective. I said in some ways. All of us have a bodily reaction to what we consume. Sometimes it's so subtle, we can't really detect it very well. With tea, generally speaking, as you're drinking through the cup, you'll start to detect movements within your body. It's usually either heating or cooling. So Chinese medicine has lots to say about this. Again, we're noting the color and the lightness, and we're going to go ahead and take this quality assessment sip. And remember, again, for first timers, do you notice there's one key thing I'm not doing? You know, many people come in here and they have a cup and it's full of tea. And what do they start doing? First thing they start doing, oh, this is hot. False. Not good. You blow away the aroma. You don't want to blow away the aroma. So what you're doing instead is you're very cautiously doing an inhalation and taking a little bit and coating your tongue.
How long should one wait to assess the energetics of a tea?
Great question. When looking at Chinese medical manuals, how long do they dictate you should wait before you absorb the energetics of the tea? And actually, the manuals say the following thing. For some people, the energetics come right away. For other people, it doesn't occur for 15 or 20 minutes. So all of us are different. There is no assigned limit to that. And some people may drink the whole cup and not feel much about the energetics. So don't feel bad if you don't feel much. But actually, many of us do feel quite a bit as we're going down or as we're drinking the tea down. So let me take a second sip. Okay, now in the second sip, not only am I in the quality arena, I'm also thinking, okay, what flavor am I detecting? What aroma difference, if any, is there between the tea liquor and the tea leaves? Take one more sip. Okay, I have a pretty good idea of what this tea means to me, both in terms of quality assessment, in terms of beginnings of an understanding of flavor profile, aroma profile. And so remember one thing. Is the flavor profile you get on the first and second sip the conclusion? Is it the end of the story? And the answer would be no. Because as the tea cools down, more of your taste buds can get involved and you get a richer feeling for what the tea really is. Some oolongs are pretty darn consistent as you go through the cup. Some have huge variety as you go through the cup. All right, it's your turn to brew. So the tea master will brew with you, and then I'll get your impressions of quality as well as flavor and aroma profiles. So one of the things that you might be noticing, and maybe you don't notice, is that when you use a clay pot, you can use either hot water or cold water to rinse it out. And some of the clay pots get so hot, especially the special clay pots, that from a safety point of view, using cold water makes a lot of sense. Does it matter overall to the health of the pot? No, it does not. So you can use either one. Tea masters making sure there's nothing, no residue from the first steeping in the pot. Making sure that the cup is absolutely clean. All of you who are using a clay pot are setting your timer to 2 minutes. Remembering you're using 200-degree water. So in a minute, one of you is going to ask me the following question. I can already feel it forming in the atmosphere. My kettle says that oolong should be brewed at 190 degrees. So why is there a difference, and does it matter? There's a difference because people are using different oolongs and different grades of oolongs. And so they're making decisions based on different grades. We have top grade in here, and top grade likes maximum heat. In fact, those who have the special pots, your pots get considerably hotter than these regular pots. Tea loves that, and it brings out the flavor of these high quality oolongs. All right, so you put the leaves in whatever pot you're going to use. You just saw the tea master do that, whether you're using a Yixing teapot or a ceramic pot. Leaves are in. You're drawing your 200-degree water, and you're going to add that. And then you're going to set your timer for 2 minutes if it's a clay pot, 3 minutes if it's a ceramic. So the Southern Fujian teas, led by Iron Goddess, are famous in China. And one of the reasons they're so famous is that the local people, when they migrate to different places, always take their local tea with them. And so it's become very popular throughout Southeast Asia. It became popular in Taiwan as the style to produce Taiwanese oolongs. And remember, Taiwanese oolongs didn't really start until the 1850s. And they really started as a result of poor or impoverished farmers from Fujian taking a boat across channel, taking some varietals with them, planting the varietals in Taiwan, growing and producing them in the Southern Fujian style. That's why Taiwan does the Southern Fujian style. Yes.
The warm leaves have an intoxicating ripe fruit aroma with floral notes mixed in.
Intoxicating, we're talking about the warm leaves here. Warm fruit,
Ripe fruit.
ripe fruit profile with hints of floral. Great start. There's lots going on with this. So at any rate, that's how the Southern Fujian style became famous in Taiwan. So when you see high mountain tea in Taiwan, all of that is done in the Southern Fujian style. And I'm talking about the Wulongs, obviously. Oh, your timer has gone off. You have a clay pot. You have a ceramic. You're still waiting. You're going to pour out the tea carefully. Not in a hurry, deliberately. So the first thing that should strike you right away, again, is this color. If yours doesn't look like this is a problem. So that's the first thing that should strike you. The other thing that should strike you, and you know what? You're going to tell me what strikes you. Never mind.
So the heated, somebody else comments that the heated dry leaves have a fresh aroma that makes her think of sweet milk. It's really hard to nail down.
I love this comment, and I love it for two reasons. This commentator took the time to really follow the rules, added the leaves to the pot, that is the dry leaves, and then took the time to start to gauge the aroma. And for this commentator, it was sweet milk aroma. So you've heard of the following expression, and it refers to a varietal, but it also refers to a certain flavor profile. So you've heard the term milk oolong. Milk oolong is a specific varietal. Sadly, in both China and Taiwan, you get LCSers who, in order to enhance, in quotes, the milkiness, what do? They spray on milk essence. Very bad. You see, without that, when you're sensitive, you can already get a sense of some milkiness, heated milkiness to these leaves. And yes, Jinshuan, the particular varietal, that's highly emphasized, but all of the Southern Wulongs, I find, have that slight hint of milkiness to it. While you're thinking, I'm drinking. So where else does Wulong, while you're thinking? This is to fill the air. In Canton Province, they do Wulong as well. So those are the four regions: Northern Fujian, Southern Fujian, two different styles, completely different styles. Then Canton Province, which follows more of a northern style, and Taiwan, which definitely follows the southern style.
The wet leaves give me a sense of wet evergreen trees and hints of mintiness. First impression of flavor is honey.
Wet evergreen teas and mintiness in the wet leaf smell itself. And then with the first tasting of it, a hint of honey. Love the range of comments. The evergreen, I absolutely get, and that mintiness, what a great catch right out of the gates. It is minty, cooling in that aroma. It's great. And you've captured right away, oh, there's some sweetness in this. We heard it in the sweet milkiness. Now we're hearing, oh, yeah, more than sweet milkiness. Honey.
Another taster says that the caramel scent of the tea liquor can cure a rainy day.
Ah, love this comment. The caramel flavor of the tea, of the tea can cure a rainy day.
Another says there's a pleasant, almost oily, in quotes, sensation on the tongue.
I like this comment. A pleasant, almost oily sensation on the tongue. So let me tell you, I completely grok what you said, and I have zero problem with it because it registers with me. For me, I would call that oiliness a sense of butteriness, a sense of viscousness, both things going on at the same time, particularly that butteriness. So here we're talking about honey and caramel and buttery. Oh my God, how did that all get in this cup?
Taster says, my first sip had a much stronger floral taste than she had noticed in the wet leaves.
So this commentator says the first taste had a stronger floral taste than she was led to believe by the smell of the wet leaves. And this is the great thing about smelling the leaves and then tasting and going back to the leaves. So the leaves open the door, but they don't tell you what's inside. They open the door and give you a suggestion of what might be inside, but you got to walk that path inside to get everything in this.
What food pairing would you recommend for this tea?
So one of my favorite questions always, what food pairing? So first off, remembering that this is a 200-degree tea. Generally speaking, I would love serving this on a summer day with a nice salad. And for the salad, this is a green salad we're talking about. And we aren't talking about blue cheese or any cheese in the salad. We're talking about greens, cucumbers, avocados, no tomatoes. We're talking about those three things and a light dressing. What a wonderful combination. You could actually put a pear in that salad as well. And again, mixed with this, you would be out of your heads happy.
A taster says the scent is so nice, he's delaying tasting it.
The scent is so nice to this particular commentator that it held him up or her at the door. They couldn't even enter to taste it because it was so nice. And actually, why I like this comment a lot is, for me, it was the same thing. I don't know whether you noticed subtly when I first was tasting, what happened? I smelled it, I put it down, I went back and smelled the leaves, and it's for the same reason that this commentator stated it. It was so nice, it was like, oh my God, what am I about to taste? Okay, so you can continue thinking about it, and I'll continue marching forward. Let's talk in general about what's going on, particularly in Southern Fujian, in relationship to these teas in the market right now. Because while Iron Goddess is famous throughout China, and it's famous throughout Southeast Asia, it sells itself, so to speak. These small varietals do not sell themselves. And the farmers who do these small varietals are not getting rich. And part of the reason is there's a disconnect. And even within some of the areas where they're growing the iron goddess light, they're not getting as rich as, say, the farmers in the northern Fujian province. In the Wui Mountains, the farmers there, particularly in the mountain farmers, are very wealthy, and they continue to get wealthier, as they should, because the price of this stuff, of that stuff, I should say, is out of this world. And the uniqueness of that and the lack of large quantity of that drives the price up. In addition, there's a unity between the farmers, the officials, and local government campaigns. Why is this unity so important? Most of the places where they grow tea, there isn't that unity. There's some disconnect. And we'll talk about that disconnect in a moment. Yes.
Another taster says she likes this tea, but she's struggling for words because it's so complex. The mintiness comment makes a lot of sense, but she'd add some floral notes and that the roast is of a burnt sugar, not of vegetal nature.
Wow, great comment, lots going on. First off, the commentator says, hold on a minute. There's complexity here, great complexity. And so the commentator has reflected on the comments that have come forth so far. Yes, catches that mintiness. Yes, catches that burnt sugar, not a vegetal, but truly a sugariness to it. What did I miss?
And then some floral notes.
And floral notes. All of those things are occurring in this tea. And that's why Wulongs are so fun and hard at the same time. First off, they demand your attention, but they demand your slow attention, because at 200 degrees, you cannot make a bunch of quick judgments. Oh, you can do anything you want. But will those judgments hold throughout the cup? That's really the point. And usually not, because there's more and more going on that is revealed as it cools down. Yes.
A taster asked, wasn't there an emperor who used tea as an antidote, and wasn't he the divine farmer?
Okay, so this commentator is a historian, and I love the fact that we have historians on board here. So the commentator is talking about an emperor whose name was Shennu. Was this person a real person? Nobody knows for sure, but let's pause it for a moment that this person really was named Shennu and really was a single person. Although history seems to suggest it may have been more than one person, may have been a composite. But let's say for a moment it was the one person. And so the commentator's question is, isn't it true that this Shennu went all over the land and ate various plants and one day fell sick? And when he fell sick, by good coincidence, was propped up under a tea plant, and the dew, I'm sorry, not the dew, one of the leaves fell into water, which was beside him, which he drank, which helped him get rid of the poison. Now, the way this question was posited, isn't it true? I have to answer it this way. That story certainly is the story that's told. That is true. Is that what really happened? Nobody knows. But that is the story that goes with the emperor and tea, or this particular emperor and tea. And that's why tea in the beginning initially was used as a medicine. So and with all herbal medicines, generally speaking, you don't just use a single, you combine it with other medicines to get an enhanced effect. So over time, and let's talk about that time period. Over a period of at least 1,000 years, maybe longer, tea was used and morphed into a catalyst with other Chinese medicines. So in the beginning, it was used as a medicine itself. Later, it was thought, hey, you know, this stimulates all these other medicines to have a greater effect. And it was only later that it became just a beverage. Wow, just a beverage. Very healthy.
Was the emperor the same participant asked, is that person that emperor referred to as the flame emperor, or was there, what does Shan Nu translate to?
So the questioner asked, was that emperor referred to as the flame emperor? The answer is no, not referred to as the flame emperor. But the harder question is, how would you translate that name? And that is a harder question, because that's like asking, how would you translate John Brown? I mean, yes, there is a brown color in there, but does that have significance in terms of the name or in terms of the person? So no one that I've ever heard, well, let's back up, because there is one more thing that should be noted about this particular emperor. This particular emperor is considered the father of agriculture. So from that standpoint, but that's not because of the name, by the way, but from that standpoint, that's the other title that he holds. All right, so we're talking about the dissonance that occurs sometimes between government officials, government departments, farmers, and the tea industry itself. What is that dissonance, and how does it affect farmers? The dissonance is, as time has moved forward, say since the 1990s, people in the government have thought, well, let's try X marketing strategy or Y marketing strategy. These are local governments. And the desire is twofold. One is the putative desire is to help the farmers. But the underlying desire is to help the county lift its overall economic impact, and as such, for the officials who promote this, so that they can get promoted into other positions. So you have that as one factor. So I ask you the following question. If an official realizes, you know, the scope of this tea, if only we market it as tea that cures, let's say cures something, it contributes to heart health, let's say it does that, then we can get it on the market, you know, make more money here in this county. So you have that sometimes as a thought pattern. And in addition to that thought pattern, some of the officials think, okay, let's divert some of the water that runs in other natural channels, and let's make sure that we can irrigate more land. So we gotta develop more land. So there's a development portion there. And hey, by the way, farmer, I don't like all this hand stuff that you're doing. You know, we're in the 20th century. Machines, industrial. Let's get this going. We want wealth here. So how does that clash with the culture? Sometimes very directly. Farmers aren't stupid. Farmers, in fact, if they get or see someone else in their cohort using a machine successfully will look, will observe the increased throughput or increased effect. I want that too. On the other hand, if the machine isn't giving increased effect, or the cost of the machine outweighs the increased effect, oh no, neighbor, you keep with that. I must still do it by hand. So in Southern Fujian, you've had a lot of bump ups in terms of trying to promote, trying to sell, trying to convert, and it's not an easy relationship. Whereas in the Wulong Mountains, where you have everybody on the same page, including on the same page, hey, no pesticides here. We don't do pesticides. We're a World Heritage Site. We're famous. It's a different situation. The other thing which interferes and bumps up against everything is tourism. So all of these officials look around. They look at Dragon Well, Hangzhou. How come these farmers in this area are making so much money? Why can't we do the same thing here? You guys aren't working hard enough. Oh, wait a minute. They have tourism, tea tourism there. You know what? Let's do tea tourism here. Tea tourism only works if you have the proper infrastructure. If you don't have the proper infrastructure, you can promote tea tourism all you want. No airport. Oh, that's not very convenient. Airport, but only one flight a day. Also not too convenient. How about high-speed rail? Oh no, that's 100 miles away. So all of these factors play a role in whether you're going to be able to promote tea and add to the economic activity of a particular area. When you say, okay, let's increase the irrigation, well, that's great until it isn't. And under what circumstances might it not be great? Well, how about like this year, when much of the tea growing region in China is undergoing drought, and all these side resources are really necessary not to be diverted. So there's all sorts of issues, and again, particularly related to Southern Fujian, where it's just not been as comfortable, and the results haven't been as spectacular as Northern Fujian. Southern Fujian has had an inconsistent policy around pesticides. And so in the beginning, Xiaobei and I were shocked, just shocked, when we walked through fields and we saw stuff wafting across and we smelt it, and it was like, oh my God, that's chemically. We can't do business here. Doesn't matter that this particular farmer isn't spraying. He's in an area where they're spraying, which means that there's going to be some residue all over the place. So all of these issues. So when you ask us, what separates the really, really famous, wealthy farmers, you're now beginning to hear, and we haven't talked about this much, but you're beginning to hear the issues that go into what's going to make a region really wealthy. So it isn't just about the craft itself. You can have the best craft in the world, and if the stuff is being sprayed, do you think it's going to show up here at Sophies? Answer is absolutely not. And as people become more health conscious in China and they go tea exploring and they see that stuff, are they going to be happy? The answer is no. Yes.
I have some comments on energetics.
Okay.
One person notes, for her, the energetics are calming, soothing, and deeply relaxing.
One of the commentators notes on energetics, calming, soothing, and relaxing. Love that. I have the same sorts of feelings.
Another asks, can feeling happy be considered part of energetics?
This is a great question. Is happiness belong to energetics, or is it just my imagination? It absolutely belongs to energetics.
She says the tea's mellow and pleasant taste is just making her feel great overall. Woke up feeling kind of lazy, now feeling ready to tackle the day.
Mellow, pleasant taste. The energetics for this person is they have transformed them from feeling sluggish and lazy into being fully energetic.
Another taster says she dumped the leaves out of the pot and is surprised to see so many full leaves completely unrolled.
This is a great comment. And I forgot to have all of you do this. And this commentator obviously is experienced, and I appreciate that you brought this up. This commentator dumped all the leaves out of the pot and took a look. They're all unrolled. And they're beautiful. These leaves are absolutely beautiful. And seeing them in this big, unrolled, unfurled arena, it just makes you appreciate this whole process that much more.
Another taster feels like this tea has calmed the stormy aspects of his week. It's like this glassy, smooth feel of the tea liquor against his tongue. It's smoothing out the interface between the universe and him.
This is a significant comment. The energetics for this particular commentator, the tea has taken this week's roughnesses and smoothed them out, just like looking at a completely calm and beautiful lake with the moonlight reflecting off of it. Oh, okay. How am I doing? Oh,
Good.
yes. I want to cover one more comment and then we'll wrap up. So again, in terms of trying to think about, well, I've already talked about this bumpiness in terms of relationships. I want to talk about a smoothness in terms of relationships. So it's the bumpiness in terms of officials versus tea industry versus the farmers themselves. The smoothness is in relationship building. What do the Fujianese in general have in common as a way to build bridges? And that is tea. They drink tea all over Fujian. Fujian has village after village after village with different dialects that are mutually unintelligible. But the one thing, the translator, for all the villages is tea. You can go to these villages and interchange and have relationships with an appreciation of tea. It brings people together. People who are having difficulties, either relationship difficulties or business difficulties, frequently sit down, particularly in this province, over tea. Everywhere we go to, whether it's a furniture or some other, metal making place, everybody, they pull out the tray when you walk in. They don't want to talk to you about what business or what you're interested in. They have no interest in the beginning. In the beginning, sit down and have tea. Fujian, everywhere you go, that's the first rule. I gotta go to the bathroom. Well, that would be one exception. They'll let you go to the bathroom, but everything else is first, let's have some tea. So that's the magic of tea that comes from Fujian province. And that's the magic of how they approach it and process it. So these are the things I really wanted to get across today. you've had these 3 teas over these 3 weeks, and it's been a wonderful journey, and they've all been different, but they're all in the Wulong category. And you see that they all have not only somewhat different energetics, flavor profiles are deeply distinctive. So we're about to start a new series next week. Did I have self-control and actually group the teas for the next set in the proper, normal, new way of setting up? Apparently not. Next week, we're going to have a cliff tea. Northern Tip is the name of that cliff tea. Why am I doing this? Why is the tea master permitting this? It's because, remember last week when we did Mountain Orchid, I did 50% of what I wanted to talk about. I knew I couldn't complete it in one session. So we have a cliff tea next week. Next set of 3 is interesting. We start off with Northern Tip. The middle tea, I believe, is Heavenly Arrow, which is a fermented tea that is not a pu'er. And Babe, what's the last one for the next set? Do you remember? I don't remember. Hold on one second, because I have it right here. It's a great set. Oh, I don't. At any rate, look at the website. It's out there. We're going to have a great set this next set of 3. Your responsibility this week is to have a safe week. And I really look forward to seeing everybody next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye, take care.
Bye.